As the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jones, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Yes, I yesterday heard Congressman Mo Brooks from Alabama give a very disturbing speech, but a speech that everyone should hear, and that is America is headed toward Greece. Financially, we are in a bad situation. We're $19.4 trillion in debt. In 2000, I was here when President Clinton was leaving office. We had a Republican House, Republican Senate, and we were headed for a surplus. In fact, the debt in 2000 was $5.6 trillion. Today, that debt is $19.4 trillion. The post I have with me, Mr. Speaker, I used all during August. It's a great political cartoon. It's kind of sad in a way, I guess. The cartoon is this. It's got Uncle Sam in a wheelchair. And Uncle Sam is saying, I can see Greece from here. The cliff has got written the words physical cliff. And then who's pushing Mr. Uncle Sam but Mr. Obama? And he's saying forward. And who's the donkey representing the Democrats? And who's pushing the donkey? The Republicans, the elephant. So what it's saying is that both parties are guilty of this debt that is going to strangle this country before very long. Last week there was an article in Reuters News that the headlines were, U.S. Army fudged its accounts by trillions of dollars, auditors' fines. The auditor said that in the year 2015 that he found that the Army had misappropriated over $6 trillion. I don't know where the outrage is anymore. I have no idea where it is. $6 trillion they cannot account for. And yet I hear very little about it from the Department of Army and very little from leadership in the House of Representatives. In addition to that, I, for months, and maybe even years now, have been talking about the absolutely waste, fraud, and abuse in Afghanistan. It is one of the worst failed policies America has ever had. We're not changing anything. You go back to Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great went to Afghanistan, or what was known as Afghanistan then. He was going to make a different part of the world. It failed. Then you had the British. Winston Churchill was a young reporter and was in Afghanistan in 1920. He wrote and said, what is this country? What is this land? It's impossible. And then you had the Russians. The Russians went there, and they failed, and they left. Now, America is spending billions and billions of dollars, and it is failing. An article about 3 months ago, John Sopko is the Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction, and he said, 12 ways your tax dollars were squandered in Afghanistan. That is the article. But what he said was billions have been squandered on projects that were either useless or substandard or lost to waste, corruption, and systematic abuse, according to CIGAR reports. That is John Sopko's group. They are known as CIGAR. Anyone can look it up on the Internet, and they will just verify everything I'm saying of just how much waste, fraud, and abuse, and how worse it is today than it was 15 years ago. I do not understand how we in Congress can be complicit. Well, what do you mean complicit? Well, when we passed the bill to fund the Department of Defense, if we know a percentage of that money, billions of dollars, are going to Afghanistan, waste, fraud, and abuse, well, aren't we being complicit? I think so. I started voting against the bills because I don't want to be part of that, quite frankly. So, Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to thank Congressman Brooks for coming on this floor yesterday, as I have done many times, to warn not only Congress but the American people that we're going to have a collapse sooner rather than later if we don't change the way that we are spending money here in Washington. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank our men and women in uniform, thank the families of our men and women in uniform, and thank the families who've given a child dying for freedom in Afghanistan and Iraq. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from North Carolina yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from New York, Ms.